Happy Wednesdays, veterans, and thank you for spending some time with us today. Before we get started with today's topic, over in the comments, sound off where you're from, where you're tuning in from, what branch you served in, and what years you served. TJ and I are excited to be here today and would love to know where you guys are tuning in from.
That's right. Welcome, everybody. And like Coach Jesse said, happy Wednesday. Definitely sound off in the comments. I always like to see my fellow Air Force veterans well represented. So hopefully we come through there in the comments.
You had to say Air Force.
I had to do it. Jesse.
Army here. Yeah. So we got Everett from Fredericksburg, served from 96 to 03 in the 82nd Airborne. Gotta love the 82nd. Steve Van Vuren, U.S. Marine Corps, DFW area. Hope you guys are not burning up too bad down there. I'm headed down to Austin next week, and I'm not looking forward to the weather. Coming down from Montana, and it's going to be extremely hot to me.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a shock.
Oh, yeah. We got Robert Prada, Army, Fort Worth, Texas, 87 through 95. It's a good service time, good amount of time. Norman from Cape Cod, Florida, retired Navy. Bill Carpenter, Army, and down in Houston.
I saw Nikki, Air Force, 2003 to 2007. There we go. Hey, Montana.
Got another Montana. You got to love Montana. Got to love it up here. Ray Johnson, U.S. Army, 81 to 94. Fort Leavenworth. How's Fort Leavenworth today? Got a lot of Army in here today. I see a mixture between Army and Navy. Hey, David Lorenzo, there's another U.S. Air Force for you.
There we go. Welcome, David.
Ray Sargent, multiple service vet, U.S. Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, 75 to 92. Only thing he's missing is the Navy. Well, I guess U.S. Marine Corps, that is Department of the Navy, so he got all four of them almost.
By technicality, yes.
Dave Haynes, Army, 89 to 92. Andy Hahn, Air Force, 91 to 95. There's another Air Force.
Yep.
Looks like we got a good group. Then, of course, we got Coach JT in here. Awesome. Thanks for joining us today, JT. We appreciate you being here. Malcolm, Air Force, 81 to 2012. Man, he served for a long time. I'd probably served longer if I'd have joined the Air Force, but 21 years in the Army was enough for me.
They all say that.
Ed Orms, we got another 82nd guy in here. Welcome. Paul Norton, Marine Corps, 93 to 99. Don Labard, U.S. Marine Corps, out in Southern California, 74 to 90. 90%. You're almost home, buddy. You're almost there. You're almost to the finish line. Keep pushing. Got some 101st in here. Army, Don Murphy, 82 to 92, 101st Airborne. Looks like he was a drill sergeant as well. Something I avoided through my career. I got tagged for recruiter, but I avoided that drill sergeant duty. Matt Perryman, Flatwoods, Kentucky, another 101st, a first Cav guy, 90 to 94. I think Army's got everyone beat out today. Seeing more Army than anything else.
I'll give you this one.
Sean Burge, U.S. Army to 101st, 2003 to 2010. I bet he and I shared some of the same dirt in Iraq and Afghanistan. Ronnie Rayford, U.S. Army, 78 to 81. Awesome. Thank you guys for posting in the comments where you guys are from, where you're tuning in from today. We appreciate it. A little bit about me. I am veteran coach Jesse Martin. Been with VA Claims Insider for about 2.5 years now and absolutely love what I'm doing. I served in the Army for 21 years, retired as a grumpy first sergeant, and since retirement, I've learned to be a lot less grumpy. Getting to help the veteran community is probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done. It outweighs my time in service greatly. I was not an elite member. I came to VA Claims Insider while I was on transitional leave, retiring from the Army. So I did a delivery at discharge claim. Ended up 100% first time go. So didn't have to battle the VA too much. But I would have used the elite program if I would not have had the outcome that I have. We all, a lot of us chose to serve. And, one of the biggest things I wanted to do once I retired from the military was to continue to serve. So being able to help the veteran family, our family, because no matter when or where you served, we've all have had common experiences. Doesn't matter what branch, what years, we've all had common experiences. So the continuation of service for me is why I do what I do. For your Army folks, you guys know the first sergeant provides the beans and bullets. And instead of providing beans and bullets to soldiers, I'm providing beans and bullets to veterans now. And it's very, very rewarding. What about you, TJ? I know you said Air Force. What brought you to us?
I sure did. So yes, I am a veteran coach, TJ Kama. Welcome everybody. I am an Air Force veteran. I served from 2008 to 12. I was never an elite member, but I did go through a lot of battles. I did not do the delivery at discharge program. I waited a little bit, went through my ups and downs, increases, decreases. But I'll tell you, since I got out, being here has just been the absolute best thing that I've done. I mean, it's just so rewarding, so fulfilling. I missed the camaraderie, I missed the feeling of community with the veterans, and I just, I craved it. And so couldn't be happier to be here. It's a funny little story, actually, as far as how I ended up at VA Claims Insider. So about 3.5 years ago, I moved out to Texas and decided, it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, I decided that I had some money saved up and I wanted to invest it. So I went out and got myself a financial advisor. And just so happens that financial advisor is the wife of one of our fellow coaches here. And she knew I was a disabled veteran. She, let me know when the hiring was going on. I gave it a shot, gave it my best, and here I am. So super happy to be here. Really excited about it. And I look forward to this next hour with you all.
So we got to get an admin note out of the way. Disclaimer, we are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veteran Affairs. And we are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based coaching consulting company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted, independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions for a wide range of disability conditions. All right, so how do we do this? A lot of veterans come to us, they're confused, they don't understand the process. The VA is all digital now pretty much. You can still mail in claims, you can still mail in higher level reviews, supplementals, whatever you're trying to do. But what we do is we help veterans develop a strategy. You never know what order to do your claims in. So we help veterans develop a strategy. We provide education on how to complete the process. What type of evidence is needed. We do the strategy, education, and medical evidence. The key to a successful claim is having that medical evidence. Without that medical evidence, you're going to be spinning your wheels and not gaining any traction. We do this through one-on-one coaching. If you're an elite member of this program, you will be assigned to a veteran coach, such as myself or TJ, or one of the many other outstanding coaches we have. You and that coach will develop that strategy and plan on which claims and what order you're going to do those claims in. That one-on-one coaching will also help facilitate the claim submission process. It gets very confusing doing it online. I can remember doing my delivery at discharge claim, which was online, and I kept getting kicked back and forth between e-benefits and va.gov. And, being a technology type of guy, I found it difficult to do. So there's a lot of veterans out there that struggle with that technological piece, and we're there to assist and provide education on those areas. The other thing, the one-on-one coaching does, we do CMP preparation. That compensation and pension exam, also referred to as CMP, is the most important day of your VA claims process. You need to have a successful exam to have a successful claim. You got to be prepared for that. Live classes via Zoom. 3 times a day, we offer live classes. Every morning, Monday through Friday, we have coffee with the coaches, which is just a great hour of camaraderie between fellow veterans. Also great, just an hour block of time to get some questions answered. We offer mental health exam prep classes. Great classes to get a better understanding of what the VA's the CMP process for those mental health exams. Provides great information on what areas, what to talk about, what to avoid. So really great classes. Medical exam prep. Those medical exams can be tricky, especially for range of motions. Do they use a goniometer for my range of motions? Our medical exam prep class, our mental health exam prep class prepares you so you know what you're walking into and what to be expecting. If you're not already an elite member or you're interested in joining our program, sign up for a free discovery call if you want to learn more. Schedule that free discovery call and talk to one of our team members by going to vaclaimsinsider.help. If you need, reach out to our organization at vaclaimsinsider.com. We'd love to partner with you on your VA claim journey.
All right. So let's dive in, right? Gulf War presumptives. And keep this in mind. You do not have to be a Desert Storm veteran, okay? But if you served in what the VA refers to as the Southwest Asia Theater, then you could be eligible for VA benefits for Gulf War presumptives. Now, what is the Southwest Asia Theater, right? What locations are considered in that? You've got Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the neutral zone between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Oman, Afghanistan, Israel, Egypt, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, anywhere in the Gulf of Aden or the Gulf of Oman, and also the waters of the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea, and this is important because this is a lot oftentimes forgotten, but the airspace above all those conditions or above all those locations is also included. So if even if you flew over those locations, right, you could still qualify. The VA has done.
You're saying the Air Force members qualify? Flying over
I
the airspace.
should have expected that, but he's right. It's true. So look, the VA has done research that has connected several illnesses to service in those areas, including the airspace. So those illnesses, as well as some other different symptoms, they've been shown to be present in a higher rate of Gulf War veterans than anybody else. So, get those locations documented. If you served in any of those locations that we listed, it's really good to go ahead and get yourself signed up, right? Get yourself going in the program. We can get you more information, and we'll get you moving in the right direction.
These locations, CJ, I wasn't aware of all these locations, once I became a veteran, or even while I was on active duty still, and I heard about Gulf War veterans' illnesses or Gulf War syndromes, I thought it was really pertinent to just those that served in Desert Storm. So I was thinking Iraq, Kuwait, maybe Saudi Arabia. But learning all of this really is great because now it opens up the eligibility to 7.8 million veterans. 7.8 million veterans have served in this area of eligibility since the Desert Storm. I thought that was pretty insane to learn that many veterans had served. You hear these large numbers in Iraq and Afghanistan during OEF and OIF, but wow, 7.8 million.
Huge.
So Gulf War dates. For purposes of VA benefits, the Gulf War does not just refer to the 91 conflict in Kuwait. Because of the proximity of several U.S. deployment zones to the Persian Gulf, the VA considers Gulf War dates to span from August 2nd, 1990 to the present day. So there it is again. You don't have to be a Gulf War vet to be eligible for these, to have eligibility for these presumptives. If you served in Iraq or Afghanistan during the OIF, you're eligible for these presumptive conditions. This means you could be eligible for a VA rating if you deployed on active duty to Iraq, Syria, Kuwait, or any of those other areas that TJ mentioned.
All right. So what is Gulf War veterans illness, right? Gulf War veterans illness is a group of several illnesses or even a combination of just symptoms. The VA often considers it what they call an undiagnosed, right, or medically unexplainable illness, which basically just means, doctors have taken a look at you and they can't quite put their finger on it as far as what specific illness is causing the symptoms that you have. And if they have made a diagnosis, they may not be able to determine what exactly caused it, right? The VA considers Gulf War veterans illness a chronic disorder. So meaning it has persisted for 6 months or longer, right? It can't just be, if it just was a few days where you're having these symptoms, right? Probably not going to fall into that range. But if it's something that has persisted 6 months or longer, VA considers it chronic.
So really those chronic illnesses are what you're looking for when it comes to these presumptive conditions. There's a whole plethora of conditions that we're going to mention later in this live, but that chronic is what they're looking for. Is it something that's become long-term? Is it persistent daily in your lives? What does your symptoms look like? So, before you get into the symptoms of Gulf War illnesses, Gulf War veteran illnesses, something that the VA offers that I would encourage every veteran to do is that Gulf War physical. Go in there and do that physical. Help identify, have a medical provider identify if you're struggling with any of these illnesses that we're going to discuss. There are many symptoms associated with Gulf War illnesses. Certain symptoms and illnesses have become so prevalent among veterans of the Southwest Asia theater that the VA presumes they are service connected. These are often called Gulf War presumptives. This means you don't have to provide these conditions. You don't have to prove these conditions are service connected if filing a claim. You still have to prove you have the condition, but the VA will automatically consider it service connected. There are 3 categories of Gulf War presumptives. 1, chronic multi-symptom illness, presumed service connected. Gastrointestinal disorders. Do you have issues with your stomach? Do you have regurgitation? Do you have acid reflux? What is going on with your gut? Chronic fatigue syndrome. That's a big one. A lot of us suffer from chronic fatigue syndrome. I'm tired all the time. I have to have several cups of coffee in the morning to get going. So, are you fatigued all the time? Fibromyalgia, that's another big one. A lot of veterans get service connected for. Other undiagnosed illnesses, including but not limited to cardiovascular disease, muscle and joint pain, and headaches. These are some of the conditions that are considered chronic multiple symptom illnesses. So really, really know what's going on with yourself. Be prepared to talk to your medical provider about these. Some of the undiagnosed symptoms presumed service-connected: fatigue, skin symptoms, headaches, muscle pain, joint pain, neurological symptoms, mental systems, respiratory symptoms. Respiratory symptoms have been a big one for me. My respiratory symptoms fell under the burn pit presumptive conditions in the PACT Act, but they were due to environmental exposures. I'm service connected for sinusitis and rhinitis, and my condition with my sinusitis has gotten so bad, I'm about to have my 3rd surgery on my sinuses because of it. So really know what your symptoms are so you can identify what you struggle with. trouble sleeping, cardiovascular systems, abnormal weight loss, menstrual disorders, and here we go again, gastrointestinal issues, whether it's IBS, acid reflux, gastro issues, can be a variety of different things. The third category is infectious disease presumed service connected. So you have brucellosis, the Q fever, malaria, tuberculosis, non-thyroid, typhoid, salmonella, and West Nile virus. So, some of those have to manifest within 1 year of separation, but some of them don't. So if you're still struggling with some of those infectious diseases to this day, get in, talk to your provider, and be prepared to talk about those. One thing to note, because of the dates and location of the conflicts, service in Afghanistan is treated differently than in other areas under the Southwest Asia Theater umbrella. For service in Afghanistan, your presumptive condition must have started on or after September 19th, 2001. So, a little different if you just served in Afghanistan, but you're still eligible for these presumptives.
Yeah, and Jesse, you mentioned a little bit earlier the Gulf War Registry Health Exam. That is, like he said, highly recommended. I did that myself, and it ended up, I would think, contributing to eventually getting service connected for chronic fatigue syndrome, which is what I ended up getting. Now, of course, it's different for every veteran, but having that documentation on file, going through that exam, right? They're going to take, blood samples, urine, whatever they may do, but that's medical evidence right there. And so it's extremely helpful. I highly recommend everybody doing it. And you can get that link on the VA's website as well, as far as how to get registered for that. But I just wanted to bring that up too, because it was a great point. Okay, so let's go in.
When it comes to these physicals, registries, get yourself on those, because what that does is you get email notifications of up-to-date things as they change. For the burn pit registry, once they approved the burn pit presumptives 2 years ago, they sent out a blast email to everyone on that registry. So signing up for the exam, like TJ mentioned, as things evolve and things change, because Congress and the Senate and legislation is always changing on these conditions. And like prime example for recently, the PACT Act. The PACT Act opened up a lot of conditions for a lot of veterans. So be in the know. That education piece that we provide is going to help you be successful in your claims process.
That's right. That is right. Highly recommended. All right, so how to get a VA rating for Gulf War veterans illness, right? So first step, determining your eligibility, right? That's the first thing you've got to do, because you got to understand and be able to know whether or not you are eligible. So there's a few questions that you can ask yourself, right? One, have you served on active duty in the Southwest Asia Theater, all those locations that we mentioned earlier? Okay, if you have, do you have any of the conditions or symptoms that we have talked about above? And again, we've got a great blog on our website that goes into all this too, in case, because you're not going to remember everything, but we got a blog that goes into detail about all the illnesses. The answer to that is yes. All right. Did your condition arise between now and August 2nd, 1990, which is for Afghanistan? If you went to Afghanistan, the date is August 2nd, 1990. Or September 19th, 2001. Oh, I got that backwards. September 19th, 2001 for Afghanistan. August 2nd, 1990 for the rest of the theater of operations. If the answer to that question is yes, is the condition chronic, right? Like we mentioned earlier, has it been going on 6 months or longer, even years? Even if the severity fluctuates, this is important to remember. If you have good days and bad days, or maybe you have a good month and a bad month, even if it fluctuates, if it's still been going on for 6 months or longer, could still be considered chronic. And has the condition resulted in what would amount to a VA disability rating of at least 10%? Okay. So if the answer to those questions is yes, you may want to consider filing a claim. And that's what we're here for, right? We cannot file claims for you, but get yourself signed up, get a coach, They can give you all the information, the education that you need in order to get going in the right direction.
Yeah, if you're questioning the eligibility or not, just do that free discovery call. Free discovery call and talk to one of our veteran ambassadors on that eligibility criteria. And if you're a good fit, they'll get you signed up and you'll get assigned a coach and we can get you moving in the right direction.
That's right. If you're unsure whether or not you've got a qualifying condition, again, we've said it before, we'll say it again, get yourself on that Gulf War registry health exam. Can't stress enough the importance of that and having that medically documented, as Jesse mentioned earlier. Also, enrolling in VA healthcare, if you have not done that, not required. So if you've never gone to the VA for any type of healthcare or anything like that, but you want to do this exam, you can still do it. But you do have to be a qualifying veteran, right? You've got to be a veteran of Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, or New Dawn. Step 2, all right, gather evidence. So if you think you're eligible or you are eligible, right, you want to begin that process, you've got to collect medical evidence. So if you've got service treatment records relating to any of those conditions, if you've got a current diagnosis, an independent medical opinion, or a Nexus letter, which is just a fancy word for connection letter. So a letter from a doctor connecting a diagnosis to your service. If you've got other things, x-rays, MRIs, imaging, other types of treatments, medical test results showing or supporting your claim, you'll want to gather those, right? And then, of course, any other documents that prove that you are, in fact, a Gulf War veteran. And if you are, it'll be annotated, or at least it should be on your DD-214 as well.
So if it's not annotated on your DD-214, sometimes you have to get a little creative with how you're going to prove it. Do you have orders? I know the Army produces orders for us to go downrange. Do you have a 1610, some temporary duty orders? Did you receive an award while you were down there that says that Private Joe Snuffy was in Iraq from this date to this date and was given an Army Achievement Medal? So really, sometimes you have to get creative. Most of the time it is listed on your DD-214, but there are those one-offs where it's not. So really think about what you have in your personnel file.
That is right. All right. So let's say you qualify, you've got your medical evidence gathered up, right? You feel like you're ready to go. At that point, the next step would really be to submit your claim. So you got everything collected. You can submit that claim. And I think Jesse referred to this earlier, but you can do it online, which is the way that the VA typically goes nowadays, but you can still do it via the mail, or also even in person if you go to a VA regional office. And really, for whether you do it online, mail, you want to submit an intent to file. Okay. The intent to file is just locking in the effective date in case your claim is approved, right? It's basically you saying to the VA, hey, look, I'm planning on submitting a claim for conditions. You don't have to put specific conditions on that intent to file, but get it locked into the VA's system because, like I said, it can lock in the effective date, and that might qualify you for some back pay if you still need time to gather your medical documents after you start that intent to file. So that is a crucial step in the process. And when the VA receives that, you'll get a confirmation notice, right? You should get an email, something like that, within a few hours or so after you have filed that claim. And if you do it by mail, it may take a couple of weeks, right? Snail mail, it's a little bit slower, not as automatic as doing it online. And then, of course, at that point, right, you've submitted your claim. Well, now you're just awaiting for a decision, okay? Hurry up and wait. That's what us veterans are trained and very proficient at, is just hurry up and wait. So it can take the VA anywhere between 7 to 21 days to perform what's called the initial review. So they're just looking at everything on your application. They're confirming that your service qualifies you if you're doing presumptive conditions, right? And then they'll start gathering evidence. They'll review your claim. Once they've done all that, they will make a decision. And that decision process could take between 30 and 90 days. Now, it is give and take a little bit, right? These are more so averages. It could be a case-by-case basis. At that point, if the VA, once they make a decision, they will notify you. That notification process could take between 2 to 4 weeks. But from submission to decision, right, you're looking at maybe around average 58 days to 6 months. Okay. As of April 2023, the average is right around 122 to 131 days, right, from submission to decision. But it can differ. Those are just averages.
They are just averages. I've seen claims come back in as little as 8 days. So it really is based off that medical evidence you have. Stronger the evidence, potentially, the quicker your claim's going to go.
Yeah, the more you put together, you're just making it easier for the VA at that point to really review everything, and that could speed the process up quite a bit.
Let's go back and touch on some things. I know we kind of went fast through the qualifying areas just to talk about that again. Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the neutral zone between Iraq and Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. I wouldn't have thought Bahrain was one of them. I know we have a permanent military installation there where the Navy does. So I would not have thought that was a permanent one. And with sailors and Marines being there all the time, hence why these Gulf War presumptives are too present. Qatar, I know, doesn't the Air Force have a strong presence in Qatar?
Yeah, Qatar, also UAE. There's a big installation there. And that's one of those ones that kind of often gets forgotten, right? Nobody really thinks about that as a prominent location, but that is definitely included in there. Yeah, big presence there for the U.S. military.
For all my Army folks in the room, if you're an air defender, air defense artillery, I know you guys spend a lot of time in Saudi. So, that's something to take into consideration as well. Like I said, you have Oman, Afghanistan, Israel, Egypt. I know I saw a question in the chat earlier if Turkey was one of the locations. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Turkey is one of the locations. Syria, Jordan, Gulf of Aden, Gulf of Oman, the waters of Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea, the Red Sea. So that captures all the sailors and most of the Marines in this room, especially if you were assigned to a ship, and the airspace above those locations. Gulf War dates, minus Afghanistan, August 2nd of 1990 to present. Afghanistan, I want to say, was September of 2001 to present. You have the chronic multi-symptom illnesses. You have the undiagnosed symptoms. And you have the infectious diseases. So a lot of things to think about.
Right.
You have anything else you want to touch on, TJ?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and it kind of brings back to when you threw out that mind-blowing number of 7.8 million veterans. The reason for that is because there's so many, like we said, there's so many locations that nobody really, thought about as far as qualifying. Like you said, everybody just thinks Iraq, Afghanistan, right? Those are the main two things. But look, a lot of the U.S. military is going all over to these places. And the water too. That's a big one too. The water and the air. Remember that. If you never actually set foot, but you did flying or you were sailing through the waters, you can qualify. So, that's why that number is so huge, that 7.8 million, because there's a lot of veterans that went in and out of those regions, whether it's on the water or in the sky. So definitely, get it checked out, get yourself on that registry exam, because it can really get you going in the right direction as far as getting presumptive conditions and qualifying for them.
That number is going to continue to grow as Air Force members, as service members do their rotations through those permanent installations in the Gulf and those countries. I believe we have a Navy battle group in the Gulf at all times, just about the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, the Arabian Sea. The Navy's presence is strong there.
Yeah, and same thing with Qatar and like I said, UAE. I mean, there's installations in those nations, and I don't think they're going to be going anywhere anytime soon. So there's constant deployments and rotations going in and out of those. So like, yeah, that number is going to grow, and it probably is growing as
Did you
we
ever-
speak.
Did you ever go to Qatar, TJ?
I only stopped there very briefly on the way to the UAE. Stopped there in Bahrain. So a couple of those
Okay.
places, then flew from one to the other. So touched on every aspect there, basically.
I got to go to Qatar for a 4-day pass during my 06-07 deployment to Iraq. It was a nice break. It was a nice break.
I hope you enjoyed it. You probably deserved it.
No, I did enjoy it very much so. Very much so. So, if you guys have any questions in the eligibility, sign up for that free call, vaclaimshelp.com. vaclaims.help. Talk to that ambassador, find out if you're eligible. And if you have any further questions or further claims you want to work on, go ahead and sign up for the elite service, get assigned to that coach, and start developing that strategy, getting that education together and that medical evidence.
That's right. And also, our legendary founder of VA Claims Insider, Brian Reese, he has got a book that is out called You Deserve It. It just came out with the second edition here not too long ago. You can download that ebook for free. Please do check that out. It just dives into all kinds of detail about VA disability and what you could qualify for and what it even means to qualify. So be sure to check that out as well. It's a great read. You will not regret it.
So I guess now we'll turn it over to you guys and answer any questions you have. Feel free to post the questions in the chat, the comment area, and TJ and I will get to them. Let's see, going back to some of these starred ones. Ivan Lewis, how about jet vapors? Are they considered on that act? There are issues coming from jet fuel exposure vapors. I'd recommend you doing that free discovery call and talking about the eligibility with those programs.
Yeah, I see a question here from Bart. He is saying, I'm 100% P&T, but do you think that I should still pursue this so that it's in my VA file just in case at some point they mess with my rating? I would recommend, if you're talking about the health registry exam, feel free to do that, right? That's just, you're just getting, an exam medically. But if you are at 100% P&T, it's just a personal recommendation. Of course, I don't know your specific situation, but it's always good typically to leave your claims situation alone if you already are at 100% P&T, just because you're already there. And if you do start doing new claims, they could open things back up and start reevaluating things.
And Tavery Hill, apologies if I butchered your name. My sleep apnea claim was denied, and it said burn pit exposure and environmental hazard in the Gulf War. So sleep apnea claims are pretty interesting. That is something you most definitely would want to get signed up for and discuss with the coach. Sleep apnea, there's multitudes of issues that can cause sleep apnea. Maybe your claim was filed wrong. Maybe it should have been done as a secondary and not a primary. Highly recommend you join the elite service and talk to a coach in detail about why your claim was denied, the rationale, and why the VA said, hey, we're not going to approve this. So sign up for that discovery call, talk to one of our ambassadors, get signed up with a coach, and get moving on that sleep apnea claim.
All right, I see Robert Pradias Sr. Said, what about Nexus and buddy letters? How well do they help? So, if you've got good, solid medical evidence, it always helps, right? Any type of medical evidence that's well done and on point of what you're claiming always helps. A lot of presumptive conditions, and it really depends on your specific situation, but sometimes you may not even need a Nexus. But that Nexus letter, right? It's just a letter from a doctor connecting. The Nexus is just a fancy word for connection or a link. It's connecting a condition to your service. And a buddy letter, those can be helpful. For a buddy letter, like if, for example, if you're having trouble finding documentation that you were deployed in a certain location, right? But you've got buddies that were deployed there with you. You could, potentially have them write up a letter stating as such. But, all in all, medical evidence is important. It always helps.
Depending on your situation, Robert, Nexus letters are invaluable. You can't put enough emphasis on a Nexus letter. If they weigh a lot, I'd say they're worth their weight in gold, but a letter doesn't weigh much, but they are invaluable to have. Bill Carpenter asks how to schedule a Gulf War health exam. So you can go to va.gov and look up the Gulf War registry exam and sign up that way, or you can contact your local VA and ask them to schedule a Gulf War health exam for you. I was able to call my local VA and say, hey, I would like to do this exam. And it took them about a month to get me scheduled for it, but the exam was very successful. We identified some issues that I was not aware of. So highly recommend doing that exam.
Yep. And again, I'll back that up. I'm somebody who did it, and it's very helpful, can be very helpful. So definitely do it. Okay. I see a question from Stephanie Lewis. Would sleep apnea be considered a respiratory presumptive? So, and Jesse, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I don't believe sleep apnea itself is considered a presumptive condition. However, did you want to say something about that, Jesse?
I have not seen it awarded as a presumptive condition. Kind of goes back to the previous question about sleep apnea. What's the rationale on why it should be service connected? Did it start to manifest while you're on active duty? Was that onset while you're still in? What other conditions are you service connected for that potentially could be causing your sleep apnea? But it is not considered a presumptive condition under the respiratory issues.
Yeah, exactly. And there are, some other presumptive conditions, things like sinus issues. You were mentioning that you had those earlier, and that can cause, sleep apnea sometimes. Not a guarantee, right? Everybody's different, but that's like Jesse was saying, there could be other conditions causing it that you may want to definitely dive into.
Warren asked, what are undiagnosed symptoms? That's confusing. So undiagnosed symptoms, are you having issues with fatigue, skin symptoms? They're issues that you are having that you haven't been diagnosed with that can be presumed service connected. So it all goes back to your medical evidence. If you're having fatigue, headaches, muscle pain, joint pains, you'll want to get in there and see your doctor. So you can get a diagnosis for it so you can start working on a claim.
Yeah. And that is a great question because it is extremely confusing, right? I mean, you're going to a doctor, you're expecting treatment, and the result is undiagnosed symptoms. And I'm somebody that has that. So like you just said, right? Extreme fatigue, joint pains, headaches coming and going. And those are things that, there wasn't a specific incident that caused it, right? It's not like you had some sort of accident that caused those specific injuries. Those symptoms just started occurring. Sonia Rodriguez asks, is arthritis considered a Gulf War presumptive? It is not at this point. It is not considered a Gulf War presumptive, no.
Russell Scott, all Gulf War claims due to environmental hazards? Not necessarily. There's different things that you experience over there that can cause different conditions. So not necessarily all due to environmental hazards.
Stephanie Lewis asked, for chronic multi-symptom illness, do you file a claim for each of the symptoms or file collectively under that title? Again, this is different from veteran to veteran, but if you are shooting for chronic multi-symptom, undiagnosed illness, you're going to file it as that rather than each and every symptom individually, typically.
So Richard Kelly, what was the earliest date for beginning your turkey? Was there in 88 to 89? So the earliest date would be August 2nd, 1990. That's when the Gulf War illnesses were established for. So you just miss it by a little bit, sir. Apologize for that.
USMC Farrell says, I didn't go to Desert Storm or Somalia, but was attached to an LAV unit during that time. Is it possible that breathing in diesel fumes, jet fuel fumes, could cause GERD? I have a history of that dating back a little bit and still suffer today. Again, that's one of those things that is a case-by-case basis. You know, being that I don't know your specifics as far as what your medical records or everything like that, you know, you'd have to get a little deeper dive into that. But I would always recommend, and we've talked about it earlier, get yourself signed up for a discovery call, vaclaims.help. They can go over everything and kind of figure out if it's a good fit. So we can dive a little bit deeper into that, because that one is kind of, you know, one of those gray areas.
So got a question from John Winsmat. How about asthma? So asthma is not covered in the Gulf War illnesses. However, it's covered in the PACT Act and the burn pit presumptives. So if you served August 2nd, 1990 or to current, you know, you can look at those burn pit presumptive conditions and the PACT Act.
I see a question here from Dennis Hale. He says, I was in Turkey from 92 to 94. I have been diagnosed with sleep apnea, prostate issues, and acid reflux. Denied all three claims because I couldn't prove they were service connected. In that situation, you know, with those issues not being on the presumptive list, what you may need to do is go get a Nexus letter, right? That we've talked about that from a doctor who can look over your records and write up an opinion stating, hey, these conditions I believe are connected to service, and this is why. That's probably the missing piece right there. And so, you know, having one of those could turn around that claim.
And, you know, just to caveat off of what TJ said, it all comes back to that nexus. So that rationale that's provided in the Nexus letter is going to say this caused that. This exposure caused that. This issue caused this condition. And it's written by a medical provider that has an expertise in those fields. So, you know, really, really get that medical evidence, because that's what wins claims, is medical evidence. Howard R. Washington is high blood pressure, stroke, and congestive heart failure presumptive symptoms. You know, cardiovascular was mentioned on there. Without knowing the specifics of what's going on with you, for cardiovascular issues, a lot of stuff can play into it. I would do that discovery call. Talk a little more detail in it, get into a situation where you can talk to one of us and really go into detail about your specific conditions and which direction you should be going.
Let's see. I see a question here from James Bode. He says, it's been 9 years since I was in Qatar and Afghanistan. Does presumption end at 10 years after deployment? So a quick answer to that is no. I would say whatever your conditions are that are presumptive conditions, if you do not yet have treatment, if you have not gotten that documented and diagnosed, go do that at your absolute earliest convenience. You want that, right? That's the first step. I mean, the first step is that medical evidence. Just like Jesse said, medical evidence wins claims. And it doesn't have to be within 10 years after your actual deployment. If the 10-year rule, I think, is correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but 10 years after discharge. Is that
Correct.
Is that right? Okay. Yeah.
But that's specific. The PACT Act eliminated the 10 rule for some conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So get the medical evidence, get seen by the doctors, do a discovery call to find out your eligibility, and that's going to be the best advice we can give you. Get your medical evidence, do a discovery call with us to start getting the help you need. John Wimsett asked, what if my asthma has gotten worse after SODI? So, when conditions are aggravated, there is potential room for those to increase. It would just really depend on your case and, excuse me, how the condition has gotten worse. There's a rating criteria that you must follow. So based off of your signs and symptoms of your condition, they will be rated accordingly based off the CFR.
Let's see here. Okay, so Richard's got a question. He says, I was given a 0% rating for one of my disabilities based on OEF deployment, focused on the PACT Act, but it is not labeled as service connected. How's that possible, and what does that mean going forward? So there's a common confusion between not service connected and 0%. 0%, an actual 0% rating would mean that it is service connected, but that it is not not serious enough to warrant compensation. Whereas not service connected is just, they're simply saying, no, it has nothing to do with your service. If you're looking at the VA website and it tells you that you're 0%, but then it says not service connected, I have seen that happen. It may just be some sort of a glitch. But I would always recommend in these situations calling the VA and just to determine, is it 0% or is it not service connected? Because once they confirm that for you, then you don't have to worry about, the question it's in and of itself.
So Dwayne C. Lymore, I have medical evidence of chronic sinusitis, but no diagnosis. Can a claim for presumptive be granted? So you got to have that diagnosis. If you don't have a diagnosis for a condition, you're not going to get any traction on your claim. If you had the medical evidence of chronic sinusitis without the diagnosis, it should be easy for a medical provider to diagnose you with it. Building that medical evidence, going in for treatment. Sinusitis is an interesting claim because it's based off of how many times you're treated for it, how you're treated for it annually. So most veterans, even myself with my chronic sinus issues, I just suck it up and don't go into the doctor because I know that in a few weeks it's going to subside. But that hurts you in the long run. So with any condition, if you need to be seen, go in and get seen. Don't be afraid to go to the VA or your private care provider and start documenting the issues you're having. Get that medical evidence.
All right. I see a question here. Hold on a second. Where did it go? I lost it. Hold on. Okay. Tony says, I put a presumptive claim December 19th, 2022, and had my C&P exams in late January. Should I be hearing something? So this is, again, it is hit and miss. It is case by case basis. So if you've got pending claims out there, remember to understand, like Jesse said, some of them go through in 8 days. Some of them go through in 6, 7, 8 months. And it could be anywhere in between. I always recommend, especially if you've hit several months after your exams and you're not really sure, it's always free and easy to give the VA a call. Ask them if there's any type of update. Is there anything going on? Is there anything I should be doing? Is there anything new you can tell me? They may be able to tell you anything. They might not have any information, but I would just, keep waiting. You had your exams in January, so you'd think something would be coming down the pike soon here.
So, just to recap about the Gulf War illnesses, Gulf War syndromes. If you're not sure, call us, get signed up for that discovery call and talk about your eligibility. As discussed, it covers a whole different variety of medical issues. It covers a vast location that a lot of us served in. It covers a very large time period. I mean, you talk about 1990 to current, that's what, 20, 30 years?
33. Mm-hmm.
33 years. I mean, so 7.8 million veterans served during that time, and that continues to grow with each day. So if you're unsure about it, do that discovery call, get into the VA, do that Gulf War physical, and start identifying what your issues are. Get those diagnoses. You got to get those diagnoses. You got to have that medical evidence to support your claim. You want to recap what we do here as you close this out, TJ?
Yes, sir. Give me just a second. All right. So main strategy here, right? If you get signed up with us, if you get yourself assigned a coach, okay, what we're going to do, SEM, that's what we like to call it. Strategy. That's what that S is for. We're going to dive into, your specific medical records, your specific disability situation, what you've got going on. We're going to determine what's the best strategy, right? What is the best avenue of approach and what order should it be done in, all those things. We're going to determine what it is you need to do to get going, to start making progress. Education, it's huge. I mean, if you're going through this process without the education, and I can attest to it because I did it probably about 7-8 years ago, it can be very daunting, very confusing, right? We're going to give you resources, education, knowledge on what your specific conditions are, what the symptoms are, how the VA rates it. Okay. And then M in the SEM is that medical evidence. Jesse has said it. You'll hear it a million times from us. Medical evidence wins claims. If you have medical evidence, that's your best shot, right? That is your absolute best shot. So we can point you in the direction as far as providing, getting medical evidence. But then on top of that, right, it's just one-on-one coaching. If you sign up and you get yourself a coach under the elite membership, you'll get one-on-one phone calls, one-on-one, maybe even Zoom calls. And we'll go over everything with you all the way through from the first call to preparing for your C&P exam and everything in between. We'll go over, helping you as far as pointing you in the right direction so you can submit your claim and so you can do it properly, right, with the right evidence. And then we'll prepare you. Once your exam's coming up, we'll help you get prepared so you know what to expect. I mean, it's invaluable. Having all that is really just, it makes the process seem so much easier. Okay. And again, Jesse mentioned this earlier. We have live Zoom classes. So it's not just these Facebook lives, but if you remember, we've also got live Zoom classes 3 times a day on a couple of different topics, mental health exam prep, medical exam prep. And then we do coffee with the coaches every morning, Monday through Friday, which is where, we're all just hanging out virtually, just hanging out, chatting, having a good time, enjoying each other's company, enjoying that camaraderie amongst, us groups of veterans. So again, they put that link up for the elite membership sign up. You can also do a discovery call, figure out if we're a good fit. And we would love to have you on board. With that being said, we are reaching the top of the hour here. I thank each and every one of you for hanging out with us this past hour. It's been awesome. And Coach Jesse, thanks so much, man. You've been a great partner throughout this class. So have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, TJ. Thank you. Just real quick note, TJ mentioned it earlier. You Deserve It. Great book. 2nd edition was released in April. Sorry about that. If you'd like to purchase a digital copy, just go on to Amazon. You Deserve It by Brian Reese. Great read. And thank you all for joining us today, and hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.